The Cadillac Celestiq show car has been released, and I thought it was time for me to give my opinion of what Cadillac is doing. So welcome back to All Cars, y'all. This is my first look of the Celestiq. I've considered talking about this car for a while now, but it never really quite felt right. There's not any details. And this is still a ways away, but we know a little bit more about it, and I thought it was a good time to go ahead and give our opinion of it because, well, I tell you what, I think this is a good looking car. I really like the design language the Cadillac is moving towards with its new Lyriq and then the Celestiq. It's a little brash. It's a little not what I would buy, but it looks really, really good. And the overall goal of what they're striving for here, I'm going to talk about at the end. I really like it. So what we do know about this car is that it's built on the Ultium platform, as we would expect, and it's, well, they don't want to call it a wagon, but it's kind of a wagon. It's a wagon in the same way that Porsche might be now. What they've crafted here is really pretty impressive. They harken back to a lot of mid-century architecture, and it works. That's a pretty classic look. And they also go back and look at the pre-war Cadillacs, like V16 powered coaches they had, as well as the quote 1957 Eldorado, which was hand built. They talk a lot about that, and that this is, from the Cadillac Advanced Design Manager, quote, the purest expression of Cadillac. It brings to life the most integrated expressions of design and innovation in the brand's history. And yes, they even start dropping that old, well, tagline that they used to have of the standard of the world. This is a big swing for the fences from Cadillac, and I gotta say I'm pretty impressed. There's a couple of technology things here that I think are pretty interesting. But before we jump into it, no, we don't know the battery capacity, we don't know the expected range, we don't know horsepower, and we don't know price or really when exactly it's going to be released. We just know it's coming. But they actually say there's going to be 5 screens in it. Now, we know that there's 2 in the back seats, there's 1 in the middle, and then there's 1 that goes across the entire dashboard. It's a 55-inch information display, and what's really cool is that the passenger side has electronic digital blinds. So while the passenger can watch a movie, it's actually blocking the line of sight from the driver. I guess it's like a polarization kind of, that the driver won't be able to be distracted by it. That's pretty freaking cool. But the other thing that gets me really excited is the sunroof. Now, they're not calling it a sunroof, they're calling it the glass roof, but it has a suspended particle device, which means the roof is going to have 4 different quadrants so that the passenger, the driver, and the backseat passengers can individually set how clear that roof is going to be. If you want it blacked out, or if you want a little bit of light, or you want it totally open, they're going to have the flexibility to do this. This is a type of technology and idea that I actually remember from the new Beetle when it was a concept car. They were talking about having 2 different pieces of glass with a layer in between that you could turn a knob, and that layer would slide back and forth, and either holes in the glass and holes in that layer would line up to let light through, or it would block it. I don't know why anybody hasn't done something like this before. It's super, super cool. I won't talk much about the interior and this incredible red they've got here, but overall, front looks good, the profile looks good, although it looks huge, and the rear looks okay. I'm kind of liking it. Again, it's kind of got a little Pan America in it, but I think that other manufacturers are forging the path of more acceptance of this hatchback look that's not quite a wagon, not quite a hatchback, but more of a liftback. You see it in Audis, again, you see it in Porsches. I really like this. Yeah, makes me wish that the Saabs were still sold because they were doing it decades ago. But I really kind of like it, and the interior looks absolutely enormous. I kind of like where they're going with all of this. Don't want to say too much more about it because it is a concept car, it is a show car, it's not the final production. But another cool thing about the production is GM has been investing big time into their global technology center to the tune of about $81 million. And part of this is the use of 3D printed materials in the car. We know that there is over 100 3D printed materials that are going to be in this car, and that can be from either a composite polymer or from metal, and it can be structural as well as purely cosmetic. Since they mention that hand-built 57 Eldorado, I wonder what level of customization, what level of personalization they're going to offer in this car. I think of the Land Rover Autobiography series, where you can order almost anything you want to and they'll build it for you. 3D printing might allow that. The big questions, of course, are around that range and power and everything else, but the price, we don't know. I've heard it's going to be in the neighborhood of $180,000, which is
inconceivable
to me for a Cadillac. But I like it. I like that they're doing this because Cadillac as a brand was the premier luxury car at one time. And by the 80s and the 90s and even more recently, Cadillac's been kind of nibbling around the edges. Some of their cars were flawed, but at least a really hard attempt at matching the Germans in terms of performance. While maybe the quality and the interior let them down, they always had to have that excuse. But at the top end, Cadillac hasn't had a flagship that could really go head-to-head with the 7 Series or the S-Class. They always had excuses why they just couldn't get up to that price range. Even when you think about like the CT6, it's a beautiful car, just didn't work. But it does feel with this that Cadillac has been given the resources and been given the go-ahead to go for it. And they're just shooting right over to the top of what's possible. I'm pretty optimistic about this car. I'm really interested to see what it comes out, how it competes, how it prices. But at least Cadillac has got not just life that they're looking at, well, maybe we can compete with other people, but hey, how can we just leapfrog everybody? Because I don't think the prices are going to line up, but that new Mercedes electric vehicles, man, they're pretty cool. They're good looking, but this is better. And when was the last time you looked at Cadillac and thought, I'd rather have a Cadillac? Let me know what you think below, guys.